weather, and sports. Your nightcap of information nightly on News Final.
So let's get underway with the roll call. First, the peripatetic Pierre Burton. Calm and collected Betty Kennedy. The Iron Fist and the Iron Glove Man, Alan Fotheringham. Our guest panelist returning to his home turf, Harry Brown. Harry, all the years I've known you, and we know that you're a Newfoundlander. I don't know what part of the island you're from.
About 1.5 miles from the holy city of St. John's.
Oh.
Which is where you are now. May I, on behalf of the citizens of St. John's, welcome Front Page Challenge to Newfoundland.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. You know, one of the many nice things about Newfoundlanders, they never hold it against a homegrown boy who goes somewhere else and makes it. You see, they're proud of you.
Well, you never come from somewhere else. As long as you're from Newfoundland, that seems to me enough. I just don't want to appear to be bragging.
Understandable. Well, I think someone else on the panel at this particular moment have something to brag about. Spirit of Batoche, Pierre, will be on the network this coming Thursday, I believe.
And you
were writer and narrator.
Yes, both, yeah.
And you're very pleased with the show?
Yes.
Well, of course you would be if you wrote it.
I'm not going to say no, am I?
First time I've heard you be reticent about something, you know. However, well, I'm sure all of your friends and ours will be watching Spirit of Batoche on Thursday. All right, we're going to put you to work now, panel, after we tell everybody else about the first story.
The young American soldiers were just one refueling stop away from Christmas homecoming in Kentucky. After a 6-month tour of peacekeeping in the Sinai Desert, now they were taking off from Gander when their DC-8 faltered and plunged to the wooded ground. Our challenger, John Pittman, manages Gander International Airport.
Panel, our first story tonight is, technically it's a national story, but there are international ramifications. 2 minutes. Pierre, would you start the game?
This technically national story with international ramifications, did it take place specifically in any single Canadian spot?
Yes.
Was that on the Atlantic coast of Canada?
Yes, it was.
Was it in Newfoundland?
Yes, sir.
And is it a happy story?
It is not.
It is not a happy story. There was a terrible air crash in Labrador.
No, sir.
The American Army was involved.
Gander,
I'm sorry.
Gander.
Well,
that is the story. Christmas
right?
homecoming ends in Gander crash. Airport manager John Pittman is our guest panel. We'll be back with Mr. Pittman in just a moment after you watch these messages.
Mr. Pittman, there was a terrible crash in Washington, D.C. several years ago when an Air Florida jet, which was not de-iced, hit a bridge in the middle of the city. Was the Gander plane de-iced?
No, it was not.
Why not?
That's the pilot's decision.
And airport management have nothing to do with that?
That's correct.
How cold was it when the plane...
-4.
Sorry?
-4 degrees Celsius.
And a pilot, it is left up to the pilot, no matter how cold, how much ice, as to whether he is going to have his plane de-iced?
He is the man in control of the aircraft. That's correct.
You probably don't have any theories of your own that you wish to put forward as to the cause?
Well, that's still under investigation, and speculation only leads down roads that people may have to withdraw from. And I think that would take away from the credibility of the final report.
Do you think it might have any thing to do with this decision of Gander, which they're booing John Crosby on, I see, about moving Air Canada from Gander over here to St. John's?
Absolutely not.
Won't have any effect on the importance of the airport?
You relating the two incidents or the Air Canada
the reputation
decision?
of the airport itself.
The reputation of the airport hasn't been damaged at all. As a matter of fact, the way the community responded to the tragedy has enhanced the image of the airport and the community in the world. We've received correspondence from all over the U.S., from all over Canada, and from Europe. We've talked to our regular customers. We have a large number of those. The majority of aircraft are very large, DC-8 type or larger, and they understand the industry. They understand the job that was done by the staff at the airport, by the RCMP and the military during this very, very tragic accident, and they know the professional way it was handled. It's really enhanced not only Gander, but Newfoundland and Canada's image in the world community.
Mr. Pittman, how many planes had taken off that day, and what was the time lag between the earliest one that had taken off and the time gap between that and this particular aircraft?
There was another aircraft that took off approximately 15 minutes before that.
Did it de-ice?
No, it did not.
Did any plane de-ice that day?
Yes, there were aircraft that de-iced.
So others did afterwards?
There were aircraft that de-iced beforehand, but you have to recognize that circumstances dictate different action by different crews with different aircraft.
And it changes minute to minute, I would imagine.
Well, not necessarily minute to minute. The one that I think got everybody on the de-icing thing was a Canadian Pacific aircraft. It did de-ice that evening, or that morning, I'm sorry. But that aircraft had parked overnight. So it had been on the ramp in the freezing drizzle for not a matter of 50 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes. It was 5-6 hours. Altogether different situation.
Yes. Were you present when this happened?
I was asleep. I got a phone call at home.
That must have been a terrible phone call to receive.
Well, the phone call went something like this. Mr. Pittman, it's John Hinchy. We have a crash. It's a DC-8. I think it's in Gander Lake. And I said, I'll be right there. And that's the way everybody reacted to it. I didn't have to ask any of my staff a second time for anything. The RCMP are amazing. The military under Lieutenant Colonel McLean were what they should be, professional military group. The way everything went together, including the Salvation Army under Captain French, just meshed in a way that when you think back on it, say, you plan and you do exercises and you find holes and weaknesses. We've gone back over this one and we found holes and we found weaknesses that need to be corrected. But an exercise doesn't prepare you for something like this, and an exercise never goes as well as this actual real thing went.
Mr. Pittman, you're lucky it didn't go down in the town of Gander, aren't you?
That's been a hypothesis that's been put to me by a number of people. Basically, what it does is present you with different variables in the same equation. Your end result is to deliver an efficient rescue and rescue response.
Oh, yes, but what I'm saying is that
If
had
it had
the
gone
aircraft
down-
taken off on another runway, you'd have
Yes.
had a major urban or community disaster on your hands. Not that the one that you had wasn't major enough.
Again, I agree with you. If it had gone another runway, it may have made it as far as town. It may not. Okay. However, the management problem is the same, only as you say, it's more complicated.
Of course. I just wonder if, since this airline's and its operation certainly under scrutiny by the United States as well as by Canadian aviation authorities, if perhaps the tower would not advise the pilot, bearing in mind that he's not familiar with Gander and Gander's weather conditions, in a friendly sort of way, if you like, that maybe de-icing is not a bad idea in this circumstance, or do you wait for the fellow to make up his own mind all the time?
Now, again, that is the pilot's decision. As far as the runways go, the runway takeoff is selected given winds. And as far as the procedure for that morning goes, it was textbook. The only thing that wasn't textbook was the ending, which is very unfortunate.
Mr. Pittman, just to change the subject, is it true that there are more people defecting at Gander Airport than anywhere else in North America?
No, it's not.
It's not true.
No.
But you get some defections.
Yes, we do. We have that image, and it's been given to us very kindly by another CBC program. They told part of a story. The American news media and the Canadian news media have told part of a story. When you look at close to 1 million passengers going through an international terminal building and you have 102 defections last year, there's a lot of zeros after the decimal before you get to the percentage that are coming off aircraft. It's not a James Bond situation at Gander like people try to lead you to believe.
Oh, come on, make it more exciting. This is Newfoundland. We want a little bit of spy stuff here.
Well, the spy stuff, I'll link it to you then. Sean Connery and I have the same hairstyle. That's about as far as it
Well, Mr. Pittman, the headline here, it's a grim story to have to recall, but we're grateful to you for journeying down from Gander to discuss it with us tonight. Thank you for being on the program, sir.
You're quite welcome.
Sure. We also want to thank the contributor, Alice Pollock of Bryan Avenue in Essex, Ontario, who could very well be catching up to Agnes Miller, another regular contributor. All right, now we're ready to move on to our next round. We'll do that after you've had a chance to consult the mystery headline.
The life of Joseph Smallwood and the history of Newfoundland are forever entwined. Joey is 85 now, slowed down by a stroke, but determined to see the Encyclopedia of Newfoundland through to its 4th volume, as is his granddaughter, our next challenger, Dale Russell Fitzpatrick.
All right, panel, no international ramifications this time, strictly a national story. 2 minutes. Betty, would you start this game, please?
Is this what you might consider a light story, a human interest story?
Well, there's a human interest element to
Yes,
it. Yes,
there is, definitely.
Did this story take place in Newfoundland?
Yes.
Is there any kind of a contest involved in the story?
No.
No kind of competition?
None.
Is the environment part of the story?
No.
Is the sea involved in it?
No.
Not specifically, although all of these things might in some way be connected, but that isn't going to help you now.
Would this have anything to do with the theater?
No.
No entertainment value here?
Yes.
Well, yes.
Are you an entertainer?
No.
Are you central to the story?
Not central.
No. There is someone else whose name appears in the headline, but our guest has a direct connection there.
Would you be related to the individual who's named in the
Yes.
in the headline? By marriage or by blood? Are we going down the wrong path here? Should we look for...
I think it must be a mother. Sounds like a mother. Are you a mother?
I am, but that's not it.
Yes, that's not germane to the story.
Oh, that's not...
There's another family relationship to the person...
Husband.
No.
Father.
No.
Child?
No.
No.
Sister?
No.
Is this a sports story?
No.
But it's an entertainment story.
Well, there are entertaining aspects to it, but it's not a showbiz
all the stories
story.
in Front Page Challenge are entertaining. Oh.
Well, I think the person whom you haven't named as yet certainly has had many entertaining moments.
And it's not husband, father, child,
No.
cousin,
Wrong
uncle.
generation, panel.
Grandparents?
Grandfather.
Yes.
Yes.
Grandparents. So the this person's grandparent.
Yes.
Grandfather?
Yes.
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 Famous
Joey
for...
Smallwood's granddaughter?
Pardon?
Joey Smallwood's granddaughter?
Yes.
Good for you. Good for you. You did it.
Indeed. Well, we finally dragged it out of you, panel. Dale Russell Fitzpatrick. Actually, the story, and Dale will be able to go into detail on this. Joey determined to complete life's goal. We're talking about the famous Encyclopedia of Newfoundland and Labrador. All right, we'll be back with our guest in just a moment after this brief pause.
Miss Fitzpatrick, I'm sure that the country wonders just how well or ill Joey is. We're dismayed he couldn't be with us tonight, but how is he?
Basically, he's just fine. Physically, he's fine. He puts in a full day around his house only now, not in the office. His speech still, of course, isn't where he would like it to be.
there are critics of Joey, and there are a few of them still around,
Yes.
who suggest that he never allowed the facts to get in the way of a good yarn. And I wonder to what extent the encyclopedia is going to be factual or fantasy, according to Joe.
Well, it is an encyclopedia, and it is exactly what it says, and you go to an encyclopedia to find out the facts, the end-all and the be-all, and we feel that's what it is.
There was a book written by Bryn Walsh, a Newfoundland newsman, on the subject of Newfoundland's entry into Confederation, no small majority, I think. He describes Confederation as a plot between the United Kingdom and a place called Canada, with a kind of almost traitor to Newfoundland named Joey Smallwood as the willing participant. How do you feel about that?
Well, personally, I don't think that that's the way it is, but I think if my grandfather were here, he would certainly have a few words to say contrary to Mr. Walsh's opinion.
I have no doubt about that.
This is a monumental task for one or two people to undertake. The Canadian Encyclopedia, which has just been published, took many years, and the talents of a large editorial staff and a great many writers. How many people are involved in this one?
With the encyclopedia, on staff, we had, at the most, we had 15 research writers with editors in-house.
You say had.
Had, yes.
Now how many you got?
None.
Because there's no money.
That's right.
So are you going to write it yourself with Joey's help?
No.
What's going to happen?
Hopefully it will continue on if funding can be arranged. We were in the process of arranging funding with some interested parties.
Who were the interested parties?
I don't feel like naming them at present because, of course, the negotiations had to end because
the interested parties aren't as interested as they were then.
No, they are actually, but they have agreed to go on hold because of his stroke to see if, in fact, he can physically come back and be the editor-in-chief and the main catalyst behind it, as he always had been.
How many volumes do you anticipate?
Another 2, maybe 3.
Really?
Yes.
Big job. Alan?
How old is your grandfather now?
He was 85 on Christmas Eve.
Right. Be typical of Joey, Christmas and Joey, I can see that together. And how long did it take him to produce the 2?
We started our staff in January of '79. And volume 2 appeared in the summer of '84. So that was that period for the 2 volumes.
And where did that money come from?
The first volume was totally bank financed. Our banks withdrew their funding and their support throughout in the midst of volume 2. And basically Mr. Smallwood liquidated personal assets to finance volume 2.
Betty?
What's your role in this?
Jack of all trades. I was production coordinator for the encyclopedia.
Is this really his big dream to complete this?
Yes. It's so well said in his own words in the foreword of volume 1. It's something he's worked on for over 25 years, getting it to the stage where, in fact, he could have a staff come in and start work.
Yes. What is his own frame of mind at the moment? Because I think this kind of illness and being able to come back from that requires not only the physical recovery, but an enormous kind of spiritual
inner
strength and mental strength. Has he got that? Has he got it still? Because he always has had it in the past.
I think so, and as I was saying to somebody just earlier tonight, the fact that because the stroke affected his right side and he is right-handed, the fact that at 84 and 85 he learned to write with his left hand says an awful lot about his constitution.
I think that should be an inspiration to many people who go through that kind of an illness, that you can
and that's right.
recover.
And the main thing, of course, too, is that his spirits keep up, that he doesn't get depressed or despondent over the fact that maybe his progress isn't, of course, as fast as he would like it.
Of course, of course. Is he able to write now?
Not really, because of the fact that literally he cannot write with his right hand, and let's face it, it's difficult. I wouldn't be able to switch hands even at my age. He's not able to write, for example, something that he can't verbalize. So in that way, it's very difficult and frustrating for him.
I remember a marvelous conversation with him some years ago when he talked with great animation and great excitement about his early days and his period in New York, which I hadn't known about at all. Mm-hmm. It was great to listen to. He's a fine raconteur.
The twinkle is still in the eye.
Yeah. Glad to hear it.
What's it like to be Joey Smallwood's granddaughter?
It certainly has had its pros, and it certainly has had its cons over the years.
Dale, just before you leave us, you were saying as late as yesterday he was going to come down and at least take a bow on the program.
That's
We'd have
right.
loved to have seen him. And is it a temporary sort of touch of the flu, do you think?
Yeah, it's, unfortunately, when he woke up this morning, he had a touch of the flu, and he just wasn't feeling up to it.
Well, we're terribly disappointed, and we ask you to tell him how much we missed him. We've enjoyed him on Front Page many times in the past, and if you're watching, Mr. Smallwood, we wish you well in this great undertaking, and it is great. There's the size of just one volume alone, so congratulations, and thank you very much for being on the program, Dale.
Thank you, too.
We also want to thank Mrs. D.B. Powell of St. John's, Newfoundland, for the story. She sent the suggestion in 1972, so thanks for being patient. Harry Brown, good to have you with us. Great. We'll look for you again next week at the same time. Good night, all.
We're always happy to have your help in planning our program. If you have a headline story to suggest, just send it along to Front Page Challenge, P.O. Box 500, Station A, Toronto, Ontario, M5W1E6. If your letter is the first to reach us and we later use your idea, we'll send your check of $25.
This week on Wall Street, Canadian oil, Canadian gold, and the Canadian dollar took a beating. The full story Sunday night on Venture, right after Sunday Report.